So title of today's presentation and session is Inner Development Goals, and the sub-question, how can we develop as adults to better address complex challenges? So a short presentation of us, maybe. If I start, I'm a senior lecturer at Malmö University. I have an engineering background, but I have been interested and active in the field of adult development since 2010, and since 2011 I was part of founding the European Society for Research in Adult Development, ESRAD. So I've been interested in adult development and mostly adult development stage theories, but since a few years I've been very interested in the dialectical sphere as well, and how that can complement the stage approaches. So, and I'm part of the IDG team here. So, Stefanie.
Yeah, good to see you all, and I'm really thankful that Bernhard gave us a chance to present the IDG project also here. I'm actually part of the cadre end of the IDG team, and I am here because Rainer, whom I know for many, many years, asked me to join the team. And in reference to all the others here, I'm a bit of a nerd because my background is not in adult development. It's more in strategic consulting and in communication. And so this is due to the IDG project and the CADRA project, especially the intellectual output one. I don't know if you know the background bit of the CADRA project. There are 3 intellectual outputs. One is a needs analysis in the political and in the economic realm. And so that is why I'm here on board. And so I'm really, really curious to listen to you more than I'm going to be presenting here, just to know that what you can expect from my side so far. Maybe skip to the next slide.
Yeah, and I should add that I'm also somewhat part of the cadre team as well. So we count these two, the cadre team and the IDG project, intersecting to some extent.
Yeah, so the agenda for today is more or less what Bernhard just already brought up. So we will present you a bit more of the background of the IDG project and talk a bit more on its relation to the cadre project, which I already started with. The IDG project has 3 phases, so we will give you an overview of those 3 phases. And the survey, that is the phase in which we are in right now, that's this phase 2. So that is where we really like to dive a bit deeper with all of you. And we were really curious to have your input on the survey. And then later we will have rooms for questions and further discussions where we prepared some questions, but also curious to the question you have regarding the project and the survey that might not be on our list yet. So to start a bit with the background of the IDG project, the project was initiated by 3 founding partners. That is the New Division, the 29K, and the EQUIT Foundation. The New Division is an agency, a marketing agency that was responsible also for the design of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So this beautiful graphics you all know has been designed by the New Division. 29K is a platform. I don't know if you all know about that platform of that app. No one is nodding. So it is. It's an app that has been developed. I don't know, Kristian, how long is the 29K on the market? It's not that long. Maybe half a year, maybe a year, something like this.
Not sure.
Yeah, something like this. So it's not that long. So, but they already have an awful lot of users. And what they're doing is they're trying to bring adult development to people who are not that much into the scene right now, and they do it for free. So you can show your interest in the app and whether it's meditation or transformation or whatever, and then you can join certain courses. And later you have an experience with real practitioners and psychologists in groups for about a week or so, where you can share what you have experienced there. And so this is what they are trying to do for now, as I said, half a year or a year. And as I said, they do it for free, so which is really amazing that they do it. And it's beautiful that they have so much attention. And the EQUIT Foundation is Kristian, you know much more about the ECRIT Foundation, but I think they exist for 10 to 15 years now, and ever since they started, they work with adult development. And these three companies, or actually the ECRIT Foundation is a foundation, as its name says, we were sitting together and we're talking about the sustainability goals that have been set up in 2020 and why they make so less progress. And then they come up with the IDG project and say, well, it would be beautiful if we would concentrate on inner development more and show how this will help to also reach the SDGs better. And that was, so to say, birth hour of the IDG initiative. And there is already a lot of amazing, as I think, collaborating partner lists with companies like IKEA and Spotify, and also a lot of academic partners who are now joining the project. And I think most of them started to support the project from the very beginning. So it's getting more and more now, but most of them were on board from the very beginning. And so the relation to the CADRA project is, maybe even Ka and Rainer should talk about it a bit more, because Rainer set up the CADRA project, I think together with Bernhard. Have you been the initiator as well, or is it more Rainer? So I think one could say that Rainer is responsible for setting up the CADRA project, which has been funded by the Erasmus program. And as I mentioned before, there are 6 intellectual outputs that needs to be produced in the course of I think 1 more years to come. So in total, the program has a duration of 3 years. And the intellectual output 1, as I said, is a needs analysis in the political and in the economic field about what kind of talent we need to recruit and how to develop those talents. And so it became very obvious from the beginning that it would be beautiful to align the IDG initiative, where that is in its core, and also with the intellectual output 1. And that is where Kristian and I finally became a working team and now work together for a bit more than half a year. And from my side, I can say I'm really enjoying it. I'm really thankful for this collaboration there.
Me too. Next.
Next.
Right. So coming into the projects that we see, we describe the IDG project in 3 phases. And the first phase took place last year, or from autumn 2020 to autumn to like September 21. And that's focused on the question of the how question, the what question. What is it that we need to develop? So the method for doing that was a survey, and the method leader there, the scientific leader there, was Thomas Jordan. And the survey was around the question of what abilities, qualities, and skills do you believe are essential to develop individually and collectively in order to get us significantly closer to fulfilling the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This was sent out to the network of interested people dealing with facilitation and interested in sustainability, and the partner organizations and so forth. And they gathered around 1,000 answers. And from these answers, they put together, well, I mean, there are obviously more than 23 answers and more than 23 suggestions on which skills to include. But after a lot of months of discussions, we ended up with a framework, which is kind of the answer of the phase 1. And the framework of 5 categories and 23 skills. And you see the categories here, which is being and thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting. So let's take a more closer look at it. Looks like this, with no further description, but you can just take a look at it for a few seconds to get an overview. A few questions have arisen. One typical question is there any framework behind this? And the answer to that is no. It's supposed to be as open as possible. It's informed by adult development perspectives, which offers several theories and directions. For instance, in complexity awareness, you have all different branches of complex thinking. But there's no overarching framework. So this no overarching logic behind or theoretical foundation behind this, more than that it should be easy to kind of intuitive to learn and to overview. And we did have a bit of a struggle in how to package it. And the framework and the five categories, that's how we package it. So the being, thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting. And we did have another alternative that was more directed towards researchers, but this was more direct, more suitable from the communicative perspective. So,
Kristian, may I add one thing, tiny little thought, which I had likely forgotten beginning to say. There is the assumption within the project, there is a lot of wisdom in the scientific realm that is not yet used in the real world, so to say, out of the ivory tower, and that this project is also about creating a bridge between the academic world and the scientific world and the people who should use or could use the options that adult development and related work provide to improve their skills and competencies. So I think that is something that is important to know before. So that it's a mixture of a research and a communication project in this sense. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there are always questions around why did you this skill I think is missing. Why didn't you add this? And could we add this after? And this also we have a discussion around this. And so far, at least until this autumn, this is the framework as it is, and it possibly will modify at the later stage. Another question is, how does this framework relate to other frameworks? That's also an open question that we need to investigate. But it's as Stefanie says, it's not a pure research project, but more of a communication project, kind of an attractor towards these kind of issues. Attractor towards these kind of issues and bridging the inner world with the outer sustainability worlds, the inner world of development and transformation and the outer world of sustainability. So just let's look at a few of these just to get a short touch of what they how they are described, and with very short descriptions. In the full report, which I recommend that you download and read, there are like half a page of description of each of these skills. But here, complexity just summarizes as understanding of and skills in working with complex and systemic conditions and causalities. You say, this is one of the 23 skills. And you know that if we unpack this, we have for instance, we have the old dialectical thinking. We can describe this also in terms of hierarchical complexity or Lectica's assessment model, or we have the systems thinking. There are there are a lot of theories around this, and this framework does not specify which to use, but rather it's okay. Can we operationalize and describe development in this? Yes, in several ways, and also that this skill is connected towards understanding and engaging in sustainability issues. It's not a stretch to claim that. So it's complexity and connectedness, having a keen sense of being connected with and or being part of a larger whole, such as a community, humanity, or global ecosystem. And what I like with this framework is that when you if you look at one, for instance, if in my field of adult development, I'm pretty much into complex thinking in terms of hierarchical complexity. But when we have this framework, it's apparent that connectedness is not captured by the complexity aspect. So this is more if we see, for instance, Keegan's notion of self-other coordination, that would fit pretty well here in the connectedness. So only understanding the issues in terms of complex thinking may not be enough. It may be so that we don't act until we feel connected with those that we want to engage with. And co-creation skills. One common critique towards adult development is that it focuses pretty much on the individual. So there are at least half of the framework is leaning toward at least, or being connected towards others and also cooperating with others, possibly from an individual point of view. But that's open. From the question was still phrased. The initial question was still phrased as, which skills do we need to develop as individuals as well as collectives? Skills and motivation to build, develop, and facilitate collaborative relationships with diverse stakeholders characterized by psychological safety and genuine co-creation. And so this collaboration part is also, I think, extremely important. In it also easy to motivate them, that it has its place within sustainability issues, engaging with them. Right, so this about the framework.
Yes, phase 2. Maybe again, I should provide some more of the framing. I'm not sure, because Kristian and I have been talking about that project so often that I'm not sure if we tend to forget something that someone who hears about it for the first time is not aware of. So, the 3 phases we've been talking about, one could say it's the what is the skills, is a starting framework that is now has a Western bias, and we know about this because the people who have answered the survey primarily come from Sweden, Germany, the US, something like this. So, but actually the project aims for getting more and more different perspectives and cultures involved. And so that we know that this framework really can only be seen as a starting point. And it is a starting point that has been created not primarily by scientists, but it has been created by people who are actually using adult development in their daily normal working life, so to say, which are also a lot of people who are not expert in that sense. So not only trainers, but as Kristian mentions, have an interest in sustainability or are like company leaders and stuff like that. So this is one part of trying to create the bridge. So what kind of vocabulary are the people used to? What kind of skills do they think are important? So that is the first phase. And now we're trying in the second phase, that is the how phase, to collect activities, methods, and intervention that help to achieve those skills and competencies. So that is what we're trying to do next. And we will tell you a bit later how we now try to narrow the scope a bit and to create again a bridge between different, well, let's say, perspectives and trying to get their view on how they're working with methods and intervention. But this is something Kristian will explain later. And the third phase then will be, how can we create a rollout, so to say, of this whole starting framework and get more and more people involved. So it might be good just to have this at the background. So this is phase 3. Is there anything I missed to say about phase 2, Kristian? Yeah, so maybe we should mention that. So the second phase is primarily now about, as I said, the how, collecting activities, methods, and interventions and support to develop the IDG skills. And that is primarily done via interviews, research, of course, literature research, and especially by the survey. And I think also Bernhard sent the link to you to the survey. So, and we will talk about the survey later. And then via all the data that we are collecting, and the survey is on 2 more weeks, so till the 15th of February. So if anyone is interested in spreading the survey to their networks, it would be more than beautiful, because we already received a lot of answers and we are really, really thankful for that. I think it's around 800 now, Kristian. We are aiming for 1,000, but the more we get, the better. So if you're interested in going through the survey and sending it around, it would be more than beautiful, because we'll then, after the 15th of February, we will analyze the data, quite likely also as a co-creating process. And we will also share the data completely to the public. So everything is open access and everyone can have a look at what data we've gathered and make their own sense out of it, and create a, we call it field kit book, so that it will be a tiny little booklet where we want to show the methods and interventions that have been presented or that we come across via these 3 research sources, as I just mentioned them. And we are still not yet 100% decided what will be the criteria with which we will decide which method and intervention will come into the field kit, and maybe others later will then be presented on an online platform, but this whole process is not yet really fully thought through. So if you have any interest in talking about this with us, that could also be really, really interesting for us. And this field kit book also, because several people have asked us that it would be beautiful to have some kind of a self-assessment tool. So where do I personally stand, or me as an organization stand, in reference to the IDGs, so where we are quite good or where we could develop further to improve also in receiving the achieving the SDG. So that is also something we aim for. And I'm not sure, to be frank, how well we do with this, because time is so short. We try to do our best. And all this will be presented, as you can read here, on the 29th of April in Stockholm. There will be a huge event. We have different, there's already a hierarchy in this Teal organization project. We have nodes and hub. Nodes are now 2. One will be in Costa Rica. The reason for it will be explained a bit later, and one in Stockholm, and so-called hubs. So let's say places with just 1 or 2 organizations who are working with the IDGs yet or have some interest in it. And then we have an event that will be partly online and partly people will organize their hubs and nodes with a group of people actually where they are located. So yeah. So this is phase 3. That's again the what, the skills, the how, the intervention methods and interventions, and the 3 is then how to spread all this. And actually it was planned that phase 1, 2, and 3 should be more or less like a linear process. We didn't really manage to do that well, caused by accident, by luck, by, I don't know, a mixture of everything. Costa Rica as a country decided to jump on board and to say, well, we are persuaded that what you are doing there is so of importance for us, so that we'd like to organize our public sector completely in line with the IDGs. And they're trying to do this now, and programs will be initiated, and cooperation with ministries will be started. So, and ever since that happened, and that was just in December, so 1.5 months ago, so the interest in this project became so big that this tiny little team that consists in its core out of more or less 10 people, and if you count the cadre people to it, which are definitely core as well, then it's like 20, 25 people. It's difficult to manage for us, but we try to do our best. So it's not a linear process already. It's already more like, I don't know, a system in itself that has started. It has started its own life. Yeah, that would be what I would like to say for now for phase 3. I don't know, maybe it's we could talk for hours, but maybe the survey is most of interest here for now. So Kristian, please.
Yeah. Let's go back to the research process around phase 2. So, I mean, if you only focus on the single question, which methods and interventions seem to have some sort of support, and then we can discuss what support really means. But so what if we want to develop ourselves, we want to develop these skills, what should we do and what works? And if we only focus on that question, that would be kind of an extremely complex and huge question to try to answer. So as a research project, that would be huge, but our ambitions can't be that high. So we kind of want to gather good examples and try to find criteria and see, okay, what's out there? What can we say something about? Is there something that's missing, or are some skills harder to develop than others? Are some harder to measure than others? There's typically things that we want to focus on here. However, we went the other way around. We went the other way. So we, instead of kind of focusing on that, we went a bit broader in our questions, because there are two. If we only focus on this developing skills question, that's one perspective, and we could limit ourselves to only individuals and not groups. We haven't kind of decided there, but if we do that, that's one approach. But we want to go even further here, because there are 2 different contexts around here. And the first context that's the sustainability issues. That's the challenges we have around sustainability. So that's the kind of the context. Why should we develop? Well, because we want to be better to address the sustainability issues. That's context number 1. Context number 2, that's the organization. And the organization is interesting in the IDG project since organizations are part of sponsoring that. So that's kind of, it's focused towards that. So in that case, we can see it that we have 3 different strands that we want to develop, that we want to explore. So in a survey, you want, typically in research, you want to do kind of a controlled survey to gather data. We go very wide with this survey in order to, well, we may not get the best quality data, but the design of the survey is not only intended to gather data, but also to kind of raise awareness around this perspective. So we want to pick up tensions, different tensions. First of all, we want to, I'm down at the content here now. So we have the background information, and then knowledge, and then activities around personal development. That's kind of the core. What do you do in order to develop yourself? So that's the core. And then we have the knowledge and attitudes towards sustainability issues. So there we want to see, are there tensions between the individual and the challenge and the task, which is the sustainability issues. How do you engage in the sustainability issues? What's your attitude? Where do you think you are? Do you think we are fine, or do you think we are kind of doomed? And then finally, the organizational support. And here we will also want to explore, what can the organization do, or what in the organization that you act in, what do they do in order to promote your development? Or are they hampering it? Do they want you to develop, or do they kind of, is it uncomfortable for the organization for you to develop? So we want to kind of come in and see some tensions and frictions between the individual and an organization, or if they work hand in hand, and also between the individual and organization and the sustainability. What happens if I take on a challenge that's engaging in sustainability, but it's kind of outside the scope of the organization? Those are the questions we want to come in here. So, and for me, I think this, I'm not the expert here in dialectic thinking, but there is something here that's, we want to capture the 3 houses, the task house and the organization house and the self house. Is it, do you call it self house? Self house, task house, and organization house. So we kind of want to include these perspectives. So it's a very ambitious survey in this sense. And also, as you see in above here, the survey can be taken from 3 perspectives. From the individual perspectives, what do you do as individual? And the organizational representative, what do you do as an organization, if you answer on the behalf of the organization? And finally, the trainer researcher. Okay, you know best. Which method do you think work? Do you have any, what kind of evidence do you have that it works? Or what experiences do you have that it works? So it would be most natural to have the trainer researcher perspective as the foundation for what we want to build here, the knowledge around skills, how to develop skills and competences. However, we want to have the individual and organizational perspectives as well, because we want the individual to own its development, and also we want the organization to kind of own its development as well. And then we want to see, okay, what type of friction can occur between organizations, individuals, and so forth. And do we have the link? I think it would be great to have the link in the chat. And we would love for you to take the survey. And Stefanie said 800. Actually, I just refreshed the page. We had the target of, can we reach 1,000 responses on this survey? And that's, I was a bit nervous. After a week, we had like 80 or something like that. Today, we are 997. So some of you may be number 1,000. And so this is the survey. And then there's a lot about to say about the analysis process, but it would be, we haven't started with that yet, but that's kind of, that will be a challenge. But what we can do from the individual perspective, the individual and organizational perspective, is to say, what do people actually do from a more qualitative point of view? What do people actually do without judging methods as working or not working, but just into what do people do, and then have a description around that, which I think would be very interesting. And then similar with organizations, but but also we want to see from the trainer researchers and see, okay, what's out there? What are people promoting as good methods? And I'm curious to dive a bit deeper into the responses that are there, and to see if can we group them somehow. Can we find some patterns in there? Can we just, the easiest task or the first task we would do for the field kit is just, can we find good examples that we think qualifies in terms of, do they have some sort of empirical support? Do they have some sort of underlying theory that says, okay, we work this is how we function as human beings, and this is why we think it works. This is what is intended to happen when you use this method. And then if there is some sort of community of practitioners around this, so there's kind of criteria that we so far are elaborating with, but this will be an iterative process and an inductive process, so we'll probably go back and forth with this. So this is kind of the challenge for the coming 1.5 months to make sense of this.
It's to some extent, it's beautiful and awkward and overwhelming, this project. We focus on the individual, we focus on the organization. We want to have different cultural perspectives. We want to have different perspectives from HR representatives, from individuals, from organizations. So it's all so huge. And so we know all this. And at the same time, we try to find the best way to grab tiny little bits of wisdom, new wisdom that might help to see what is emerging and how we could manage to bridge the gap between people who are already practitioners and that's something that is about to emerge. We don't know yet, but help to make a transformation possible that will lead us to a better future, that hopefully also leads to better achieving the SDGs. So that is something I think it's from my heart. It's so important to share in this group, because if you really judge this from a classical research perspective, then everyone must say, crazy bunch of people, what are they doing there? But yeah, I think it's important that the spirit with which it is done, it is ambitious and it is humble at the same time. And I just wanted to stress that there is this being humble aspect is really present in that project. I just wanted to mention it. So yeah. I'm not sure if that was helpful, but I just felt to say it from my heart.
Yeah, I agree.